five-star Terry Bussey visiting Texas A&M. This weekend, he's been there, of course, before, but what can you tell us about this most recent visit and maybe what's next?
Well, Texas A&M, it's all hands-on-deck approach for Terry Bussey on the recruiting trail. Terry Rushing is the lead recruiter there. It's his area, it's his position where they view Terry Bussey as a corner. But Jimbo Fisher's involved, Brian Gross-Armiento, so many staffers in the mix there when Terry Bussey comes on campus. And he just talked about building his relationship with them more, says that they treat him like family when he's on campus, says it's a great place to be, and he thinks that Texas A&M's building something special right now, and they'll be at the top of college football here in the next year or two. I think that Texas A&M's put themselves in great position to land Terry Bussey. I think they're the team to beat as we talk about it right now. He's got a visit set up for Tennessee on Friday, going to be at Alabama on Saturday, going to swing by Auburn on Sunday. LSU's in the mix here, Baylor, Texas Tech, Texas, also swinging at Terry Bussey, but been to College Station a lot. This is a young man that wants to major in engineering. Texas A&M checks a lot of boxes for him, and I think they're doing the best job at this point in this process.
Terry Bussey seems to be moving at a rapid pace and obviously checking out a lot of schools. One prospect that is already near the finish line of his decision, Steve, is Hevin Brown-Shuler. He's ready to make his commitment on April 22nd. What are you hearing as this process nears its end?
Yeah, he's going to commit at 5:30 p.m. Eastern that day. And I asked him what he was looking for in a college program. He said a family-oriented environment, a place that he can call home, education and educational support distance, easy access for his family, alumni association at its finest, a big fan base, support system that enjoys watching their players play the game of football. I think Clemson's the program to beat here. He's been there several times, built a great relationship with that staff. He's a guy that they covet on the trail. And I think generally when you see a young man that Clemson's in the mix for and they look like a lean to Clemson, they don't take too many visits elsewhere. And Hevin Brown-Shuler has not really been out on the road either. So I like where Clemson stands right now going into his upcoming announcement for a player that they absolutely covet.
One program in particular still searching for a quarterback in 2024, Clemson. They just missed out on Aaron Nolan, we know, one of his finalists. So where do the Tigers go from here?
And they got a very healthy quarterback room from a talent standpoint when you look at what they have this fall. But certainly, what are they going to do at this position on the trail in 2024? I'm not sure. They were finalists for 4 good ones. DJ Lagway was the first one. He picked Florida. Walker White was the second one, and he ends up picking Auburn. Jaden Davis was a guy that had him on the short list. He's with Michigan. And then Aaron Nolan obviously picks Ohio State. I think that they maybe were kicking some tires on Hoss Hesney too, who recently committed to TCU. Him and Luke Moga are probably the 2 fastest quarterbacks in the country, most dynamic players in the country. So nice pickup for Sonny Dykes and TCU there to keep him home. What does Clemson do? I'm not sure. Look, they've only offered 56 players in the country, regardless of position, where there might be a school or two that have offered 56 quarterbacks. It's hard to get an offer from Clemson. They're looking for some unique traits, not only as a football player, but as a young man. And so it's back to the drawing board for them, but they are a school with the magnitude to be able to flip someone if the next guy they identify as a young man committed elsewhere. Now, we know that if Clemson is recruiting a player that's committed elsewhere before they allow them to visit their campus, they ask for that young man to decommit. So we'll see if anything's happening behind the scenes with Garrett Riley and company on that front. If it is, it's not going to be anything that we find out right away, I wouldn't think. And then there's some other talented guys out there that maybe they, as they evaluate guys and go back to the drawing board, they fall in love with.
And you said it, Clemson's in a good position now. This, of course, all about the future. Another team, the team they actually faced in the ACC championship game last year, also looking for a signal caller for this very class. In a good situation now with Drake May. But Blair, what are you hearing as far as maybe where North Carolina plans to address that very important position?
I heard earlier this week that North Carolina initiated contact with 4-star quarterback Isaac Wilson. The Tar Heels don't recruit the West Coast very often. This is one of the top players in the state of Utah, the brother of Zach Wilson, the former number 2 overall selection in the NFL draft, who's currently with the New York Jets. But his recruitment right now is being steady. He's on a visit right now as we speak to Arizona State. He was at Arizona yesterday. He will be at Oklahoma State on Wednesday. He's got an official visit to Utah scheduled for later this month. That would be my pick right now. I'm not exactly ready, Steve, to make that crystal ball prediction right now for the Utes, but I like where Utah is trending right now. And I'm not saying North Carolina is in the mix so that they're going to offer, but I know that they've initiated contact. And if he's still on the board heading into the spring evaluation period, I'd expect them to at least go out and check him out and see him throw. What are some other names, Steve, that you're hearing on the North Carolina front?
Yeah, so I know that West Orange quarterback Trevor Jackson down there in the Sunshine State, he's a guy that a lot of these programs have pivoted to after losing on their top targets. He's a guy that I think North Carolina is excited about. Aaron Philo, who just decommitted from Minnesota, the young man threw for 4,598 yards and 54 touchdowns as a junior, led the Peach State in passing, taking Prince Avenue Christian to a state championship. He's out there in play. North Carolina, Duke instantly jumping in on him. He's a guy that I think a lot of schools could pivot to. Maybe Clemson does as well. Michael Merdinger from Fort Lauderdale, Cardinal Gibbons is another guy on North Carolina's board right now. And look, they're talking to guys committed behind the scenes as well, as is everybody, right? So, but those are three guys I know of right now that's on North Carolina's board after Aaron Nolan picked Ohio State and KJ picked Arkansas.
Probably seems weird that we're talking about urgency to fill that position in April, but to put it into perspective, of the top 25 quarterbacks in the 24 class, only 4 of them are uncommitted at this point. So, Steve, if a program doesn't land one of those guys, the 4 available, which is Dylan Raiola, Elijah Brown, Isaac Wilson, and Michael Van Buren, I mean, who are some other names that teams could potentially pivot to in this cycle?
Sure. Well, 8 of the top 15 guys in last year's class decommitted and ended up elsewhere. So I'm sure there's a lot of feeling out on the guys that are committed, and we'll see what teams look like on the field this fall. We'll see what kind of coaching shakeup there is. But some guys that some schools could pivot to. We talked about Aaron Philo, right? In the North Carolina segment, the young man threw for 4,598 yards, 54 touchdowns, completed nearly 70% of his passes, just decommitted from Minnesota. I think staying closer to home is important to him. So he's a guy that I could see these ACC schools and SEC schools looking at here in the near future. Tyler Cherry from my neck of the woods in the Indianapolis area led Center Grove to a state championship, throwing for over 2,000 yards and 22 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions, good on 65% of his passes. He's a guy that we've seen land several Big Ten offers and ACC offers as of late. Ethan Grunkemeyer from Ohio, Lewis Central Olentangy is another young man that's seeing his stock rise. Minnesota quickly pivoted to him and offered. He's going to be on Minnesota's campus on Thursday. He's visiting Duke on Saturday. Did I say Ethan Grunkemeyer? I might have just skipped right to the chase, but 64% completion percentage for Ethan. 25 passing touchdowns, 29 rushing touchdowns. So he's a guy that a lot of schools are excited about right now as well, and a guy that I could see continuing to see his stock rise moving forward as quarterback dominoes continue to fall.
Don't worry,
Steve, we will get you out of here with this one. Florida State quarterback commit Luke Kromenhoek took a visit to Penn State this past weekend. Should Seminoles fans be worried?
I'm not on worry watch right now. I think that he's still solid in his commitment to Florida State. He's going to be back at Florida State for the Seminoles spring game, and even said on his social media that he's locked in with Florida State after this article came out. He did happen to say earlier today that Penn State was a great weekend and it's given him a lot to think about. It was his second time there. He went to the Whiteout during the fall. He's got some family that are Penn State fans. He really likes and respects Coach Franklin and Coach Yursich, and he's had 2 good experiences in Happy Valley, but he's had a ton of great experiences in Florida State. They were first to identify him and offer him, and they've had him committed for over a year now. He's going to be back in Tallahassee this weekend. He had a great visit there a few weeks ago. So I still like where Florida State stands for Luke Kromenhoek, but a second visit to Penn State that he gave high marks. We'll see in this game of recruiting, but I still like him with the Noles right now.